All right, let's talk Texas Longhorns, obviously preparing for the next round of the college football playoff after a dominating performance over the Clemson Tigers. This Texas team, despite a few issues, maybe on offense, execution, turnovers, ball security, looked dominant, and they look to be in a very strong position to win this weekend and maybe even win the whole darn thing. We got some great news on that front specifically. But first, I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, talking Texas Longhorns, and by luck would have it, I'm wearing my Longhorns orange style-ish shirt here. And look, this is a Texas team, obviously one of the better teams in college football over the course of the season. The two defeats at the hand of Georgia Bulldogs are the only reason we're not saying they're the number one team in the country. They obviously have some flaws, but they're clearly a contender to win the national title heading into, of course, the next round of the college football playoff. But to that end, the smart money, we're talking the odds makers. Vegas believes that Texas isn't just a threat to win it all, they're actually the favorite. Let's pull up this report here, courtesy of Athlon Sports. The Longhorns will travel to Atlanta to face number 4 Arizona State in the quarterfinals on January 1st. Many national media outlets believe Texas has the most favorable path to the national championship game. Texas is a 13.5 point favorite over Arizona State and would face the winner of number 1 Oregon and number 8 Ohio State in the semifinals at AT&T Stadium in Dallas on Friday, January 10th. According to FanDuel, the Longhorns have the best odds to take home the national title this season. Ohio State is close behind, followed by Oregon, Georgia, and Penn State. Well, I think that's very interesting. You have a team here in Texas that they're not the number one team. That's Oregon, right? This is a team that hasn't looked perfect. They were the least dominant team over the opening round of the playoffs. And despite that, the odds makers, the smart money, have the Longhorns the favorite to win the national title. That's obviously great news for Texas. Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of this. But first, Longhorns fans in the comment section below. Obviously, to get to the national title, you got to win your next game, of course, against Arizona State. Cinderella-ish kind of story predicted last in the Big 12, won that conference. Give us your prediction. Final score, Texas, Arizona State. Put it in the comment section below. But Miles, what are your thoughts on this latest news involving Texas?
Yeah, Nick, I think this is very interesting take for Texas, and I really dive into this and look at it. The odds makers, I think they're seeing something in Texas a lot of people aren't seeing, but I think there's a lot of other factors here as well. I think the hardest team for Texas, and this is obvious, so this is a no-brainer, would be to face this season, would be the Georgia Bulldogs. Obviously, faced them twice, weren't able to overcome them, but they're on the other side of the bracket. So if you break down Texas's route to the championship game, Arizona State, not trying to overlook them, but that should be a pretty easy win for them. I don't think they're even going to be as tough as a team like Clemson. You go on to the next round of who wins Ohio State versus Oregon. I think Texas matches up with those teams pretty well. I think they can get the win there. Then the other side of the bracket, Georgia has some tough teams to go against that matchup. I'd say very likely to them. In a team, I would assume Penn State beats out Boise State, who can really slow down the game, running ball defensively. Same thing with Notre Dame. It's going to be a tough team, two tough teams in a row potentially for Georgia to get through. So I think through all of that, you look at where Texas's path is here. And I'll pull it up here right now. You can see Texas's path here on the college football playoff bracket. I'm feeling pretty good about where they are in the scheme of things. I look at, the odds makers, what they say about Texas, where they're supposed to make it through. I think out of anybody, I would want to be in Texas's position because if I'm Ohio State, if I'm Oregon, I don't want to play Texas because I think they are the, opposite of the game that they like to play. And if I'm Penn State, I got Notre Dame, I got Georgia on the other side of this bracket. Same thing with Georgia and Notre Dame. They got Penn State on the other side of the bracket. Those are just going to be two slobber knocker games in a row. And do you even make it out of there healthy enough to the college football playoff to do some good work? I think it's a really interesting matchup here. And you see the data from the odds makers, from the bookkeepers. They're saying Texas is the favorites. You look at the bracket. I'm agreeing with them. I think this looks like a really great route for Texas to take as well. I think we're probably going to see Texas at least in the college football playoff championship game, if not going to be the champion this year.
One of the things that's overlooked for Texas, and at times they haven't been as dominant as some other teams ranked very highly, right? Of course, they were better than Clemson. We all understood that, but Penn State obliterated SMU. We saw what Ohio State did to Tennessee, and of course, there was that embarrassment Notre Dame against Indiana in the first round of the college football playoff. I think a lot of people looking at what Texas did said, "Hey, great win, but heck, they didn't dominate Clemson the way maybe some people would have thought." The reality is with Texas is they are built like an NFL team in terms of they are built to win in the postseason. They don't rely on one superstar. College football, in a lot of ways, has been hyper reliant on having one great player, whether it's a quarterback or running back or receiver, and that's your go-to guy. That's your whole team. That's your whole strategy, whether it's on offense or defense, right? One great pass rusher, middle linebacker, whatever, right? Having one great star, and you're going to go as he goes. And right, that's what we see all the time in college football, and that's why we have the Heisman Trophy, because a lot of times that one great player propels one team to greatness and you win a national title or make a serious run at it. Texas is much different. They are so balanced. They have 7 guys on the offensive side of the ball with at least 400 yards from scrimmage, right? That's incredible, especially considering we're dealing with the SEC. You can find a bunch of different receivers, running backs, things like that. They have no 1,000-yard receiver. They have no 1,000-yard rusher. They are incredibly balanced. They rely on a very good offensive line. They win the line of scrimmage. We know how great guys like Simmons are, young guy getting pressure at the quarterback. Except for the 2 Georgia games, they were the more physical team every single game they played, both sides. Line of scrimmage, running the football, not having to rely on 1 or 2 superstars to step up and have massive games. That's how you win playoffs in the National Football League. We see it every year. Why did the Patriots go on a title run for, win 7 titles over that 20-year period? They won with good line of scrimmage play, quality defense, and not having one key star. They could spread the ball around and rely on different players to win games for them. The Kansas City Chiefs now in the NFL are following the exact same model. They're making deep playoff runs every single year. Texas follows the same strategy. If you take away Blue, if you take away one of these receivers or whatever, they've got 5 other guys that can make plays. We see that every single game with Texas. The only concern I have with them is the Ewers and his turnovers. It can happen. I think it's cost them games. It cost them both Georgia games, to be totally honest. But the fact that if Ewers can remain under control, and I think Sark will help him with that in terms of his game plans and strategies, I think this Texas team runs the table just because they're so darn balanced. Even a team as good as Oregon, Gabriel kind of is the straw that stirs the drink. If things go bad for Gabriel quickly, if he has a couple turnovers or makes a mistake, they can't just line up in power football the way a team like Texas can. And you're going to have games like that in the postseason. This Longhorns team, in short, they are built for this. Sark and his coaching staff created this program over the past 12 months or so to be prepared for this specific moment. And they're the only team right now in the playoff that can handle any situation. Bad weather, they can handle it. Offensive shootout, passing the football, they can handle it. Defensive slugfest, they can handle it. Doesn't matter what the situation, Texas has the players, the strategy, the scheme, and the experience to handle it. And that's why I agree with Vegas. They should be the favorites to win it all.